May the love of God be with you during the next few minutes. I am Father Ron Will, speaking to you from Precious Blood Renewal Center in Liberty, Missouri. The season of Lent invites us to step aside from our ordinary routines so that we can have more personal, deeper encounters with God. In the gospel reading for this second Sunday of Lent, we hear a description of the time that Jesus took Peter, James, and John up to the top of Mount Tabor. And while there, Jesus was transfigured before their eyes, while Jesus was talking with Moses and the prophet Elijah. They experienced a side of Jesus they had never seen before. And then later, on the way down from the mountain, Jesus told them not to tell anyone about their experience until after the Son of Man would rise from the dead. If you had been along and witnessed what Peter, James, and John had witnessed, would you have kept that experience to yourself? Have you ever been asked to keep a secret? How did you do? Perhaps you had a lady friend who became pregnant and was all excited about it and shared the good news with you, but then said, "Now don't tell anybody. I want to tell them myself." Or perhaps as a kid, you found a Christmas gift for your brother hidden in the closet, and then your parent says, "Now don't you say anything to him until Christmas." How did that go for you? I've been on retreats where I have had powerful prayer experiences. And then when I got home, I had to tell someone about them. I couldn't just keep them to myself. How could they not have said, or at least thought, "I know something about Jesus that you don't know"? The three of them must have gone off by themselves once in a while and talked about it, savored with each other what they had experienced up there on Mount Tabor. The season of Lent invites us to move beyond our distant knowledge about Jesus and to get to know Jesus more personally, more intimately, and talk about it. Jesus went up a high mountain. In a parallel way, the first reading today from the book of Genesis describes when Abraham and Isaac went up a high mountain. In the Bible, mountains are understood as sacred sites that have provided a worthy setting for God's revelation. When up there, Peter said, "Rabbi, how good that we are here." Peter wanted to build 3 tents for Jesus, Moses, and Elijah. He wanted to provide a space for them to stay. He didn't want their presence to leave him. We do something similar at the end of a special dinner, at the end of a special date, a vacation home from college. We want the experience to last longer. Peter wanted the experience to linger. It was good to be there. But the experience was not meant to last at that time. It was meant to strengthen them, to give them a glimpse of future glory. It would give them hope when they would face suffering later, both the suffering of Jesus and their own personal suffering. In the book of Genesis, in an earlier chapter, God had promised Abraham before the birth of Isaac that he would have as many descendants as there are stars in the sky. And now in today's passage, Abraham was asked to sacrifice Isaac, his only son. It was a total act of faith that somehow God would keep his promise. It was a total act of faith on Isaac's part also. Isaac cooperated. Isaac at that point was probably a young teenager, old enough that he could have fought off his father. He did not. Isaac was willing to offer his life. Isaac was a voluntary victim. He freely chose to submit to God's command and go through with the sacrifice, even if that meant his own death. What Isaac did prefigured the future Jesus. Isaac and Abraham went up Mount Moriah. Years later, That would be the mountain where the future Jerusalem would be built, where the future Jesus would offer his life. Isaac carried the wood for the sacrifice up the mountain, just like Jesus later would carry the wooden cross up to Mount Calvary. Like Isaac, Jesus willingly lays down his life. Abraham and Isaac were willing to sacrifice for something greater, believing that God would still be faithful. Jesus was willing to sacrifice his life for something greater. There's a lot more going on here than what most of us catch on first reading. It sounds like a story about an awful parent. But because Abraham obeyed God, because he was willing to sacrifice his hopes for grandchildren, he was actually blessed with a huge number of descendants. What am I called to sacrifice? What am I willing to sacrifice? Have I ever sacrificed my plans, my hopes for my future, and later was actually blessed abundantly? As a young priest, I missed having children of my own. But I ended up having thousands of spiritual children over the years through my ministry as a priest. Did you ever sacrifice your hopes for a new dress, perhaps, or a new car, or a new home, so that you could buy your child a special Christmas gift or pay tuition for them to go to college? And when you saw their joy or their achievement, it was more than worth your sacrifice. It brought more joy to you than your original hope. As Abraham was faithful to God, God is faithful to us. Despite not understanding God's ways, Abraham trusted in God. In today's second reading, St. Paul asks, if God is for us, who can be against us? In the years after the resurrection, Peter, James, and John faced a lot of storms. The Roman emperor tried to snuff out Christianity. But they knew that they were not alone. Jesus was with them. They may have been in a storm, but they had Jesus in the boat with them. Just like he had calmed the storm that time that they were on the Sea of Galilee, they were confident that he would do it again. They were confident because they had memories of that transfigured Jesus on Mount Tabor. This was not just an ordinary human friend. This was God. God was on their side. Paul asks, if God is for us, who can be against us? He who did not spare his own son, but handed him over for us all, how will he not also give us everything else along with him? If Patrick Mahomes is on our team, who can defeat us? If LeBron James is on our basketball team, who can defeat us? If God is on our team, who or what can overwhelm us? COVID-19, devastating winter storms, a job loss, cancer? No. 2021 will still have many challenges, but we can breathe easy knowing that God is with us, working with us. Our boat may be in a storm on the sea, but we have a first-class captain at the wheel. What can you do this week to step aside from your ordinary routines so that you can have some personal encounters with God yourself and allow yourself to be energized by that love? Take a minute of silence right now and reflect. What can you do this week to step aside from your ordinary routines so that you can have some personal encounters with God yourself and allow yourself to be energized by that love? God bless you, and throughout the second week of Lent.